Call the meeting to order, and we will stand for the pledge. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I gotta put my phone on, do not disturb.
All right, first order of business, we have an appointment with the Folmsbys.
Here. Sorry, Cynthia. Do not disturb. There we go. So, because I get really nervous talking in public, I sat and drafted it all out. And I'm just going to read from it, but I did make copies for you guys. Do you have one missing?
We do. He's not here.
Put him.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. You're welcome. For you. So this is an update on the water entering in our basement since we reported to the board on March 31st. At our last visit with all of you, we read the email response that I had received from the state hydrogeologist, whom I reached out for to help in understanding groundwater and aquifers. I'm including her response as that's the expert opinion we ended up coming to you with. And since I read it last time, I'm not going to reread it unless you want me to, because it's right there. Wednesday, April 1st, 2026, events and follow up with the town manager and theater fella from the state of Vermont. After they turned the water line off to our deceased neighbor's house on April 1st, the water entering our basement started to decrease. It had been turned off in the morning while both of us were at work. We received a message from Chad to check in with the town manager as he may have an update on our water issue. That morning, the pump was still kicking on to pump water every 35 seconds. By evening, the water was still coming in but slower from under the foundation, but was still bubbling up from the middle of the basement. However, the pump was only kicking on for about every 2 minutes. By Thursday morning, April 2nd, 2026, the pump had decreased to every 5 minutes with very little coming in under the foundation wall, but still slightly coming in towards the center of the basement. We spoke with the town manager, deciding to have that interaction recorded and have a third party present. Mrs. Perry joined us. We let him know that the water was decreasing after they turned the water line off at the neighbors. He continued to lean into the water testing no chlorine. Then it did test positive for chlorine Wednesday morning, so they shut the water line off to our neighbor's house. We asked where that testing positive came from as we were not home, so they didn't have access to our basement. He started to go back to the basement water in question, testing negative for chlorine. We felt like we were getting nowhere. We said we would just agree to disagree about the negative chlorine testing being a reason for not doing anything. Previously, we had asked before we left the results to be given to us in writing. He said that we said that we were not trusting the town at this point and wanted it for our records. We did suggest that we didn't trust his words or the town water department at this point. The town manager said that if we filed a claim, we would still have to deal with him and would like the paperwork for that. And yes, we would very much like paperwork for that. After this, I reached out to the state contact and asked what his perspective was on the Wednesday morning water line issue, as well as giving us some protocol that should be followed when these kinds of issues arise. This is the quote from his email response. I was on site Wednesday morning. On Tuesday morning, I spoke with Mike LeDuc, the chief operator at Fairhaven Water Department, and offered my assistance when they would be conducting leak detection in the area of your residence. The individuals on site Wednesday morning were myself, Mike LeDuc, Jeff Higgins, assistant chief operator, and Harry Dunn Davenport, water system specialist for Vermont Rural Water Association. The water department contacted Harry for leak detection purposes. Upon arriving on site, Harry, who had arrived a few minutes prior, noticed water flowing out of the ground adjacent to your neighbor's driveway. The water was tested and it confirmed the presence of chlorine. The shutoff for the service line to the residence was located and turned off. The water that was flowing promptly stopped and quickly dissipated. I can confirm that the water was tested for chlorine on Wednesday was from where it was coming up from the ground, not from your basement. Due to the water moving through the soil, the residual chlorine most likely had dissipated before reaching your basement. As a result, there would not be a detectable amount of chlorine present when tested. In a case such as yours, where there is the intrusion of water into a basement, it would be general practice for a water system to conduct the following actions. Collect information from the homeowner as to when the issue began, how long the issue has been going on, if the flow of water has increased, decreased, or remained constant, and if the homeowner has noticed anything out of the ordinary regarding their drinking water. Test the water for the presence of chlorine. The presence of chlorine would be a strong indicator that the source of water is from a chlorinating water system. Inquiring whether neighboring residents were also experiencing water in their basements. Noticeable increases in daily water system flow, reports of lower than normal water pressure at residents in the area, performing leak detection in the area of question. I can say from experience that due to the water mains and services being located below ground, water system leaks that do not surface can be difficult to determine and to locate. I believe this should answer your questions you raised. Happy to be of assistance and thank you. And I included his contact stuff from the state of Vermont. As of April 12th, this weekend, 2026, there is no water entering into our basement from under the foundation or in the various spots where there had bubbling up from underground. Just to remind everyone, we have a dirt floor basement that had large slabs of slate in spots. The furnace, the oil tank, and water tank are on small poured cement slabs. Parts of these slabs' edges were undermined with the flow of water coming in. Number 3, moving forward for us and the town. For us, we would like to have the paperwork to file a claim for the following: mold inspection in our basement and remediation if needed. Basement floor repair work for the water bubbling up into the floor in various places throughout the basement. And Twin State Basements claimed that they would give us an estimate. Foundation inspection for the wall directly impacted by the incoming water and repairs if needed. Still trying to get an engineer for this work. Reimbursement for a commercial dehumidifier that we had to purchase to try to keep moisture from entering the rest of our house. A small roll-off dumpster to dispose of the items from the basement that were ruined by water, as we no longer have the ability to get big items to the dump. There were costs incurred from the increased electricity to run the sump pump 24/7 and plumbing parts to get the water extracted out of the basement, hooking up with the sump pump. However, as a resident and taxpayer in this town, we're not going to go above and beyond the bulleted items that we are requesting for the claim above. We just want the town to make the incident right. For the town, again, as a resident and a taxpayer, we would urge the select board to have a policy in place for dealing with water issues such as this for the future, if they do not already. A policy could include the above by Theodore, collect information from the homeowner as to when the issue began, how long the issue has been going on, if the flow of water is increased, decreased, or remain constant, if the homeowner has noticed anything out of the ordinary regarding their drinking water, test the water for the presence of chlorine. The presence of chlorine would be a strong indicator that the source of the water is from a chlorinating water system. Inquiring whether neighboring residents were also experiencing water in their basements. noticeable increases in daily water system flow, reports of lower than normal water pressure at residents in the area, and performing leak detection in the area of question. Going down this list, we believe that information was gathered from us. We did mention that we had taken pictures as we noticed the area that was the culprit of the water line leak was not freezing or maintaining snow coverage. When Scott had gotten permission from Anita's son, who's the executor of her estate, to dig in March, he showed the town water person what he'd found. His response to Scott was, "It'll dry up." Our basement water was tested several times for chlorine, but as highlighted by both state personnel, that doesn't conclusively mean the incoming water from the town line as chlorine in it will dissipate while moving through the ground. And clearly this was the issue. We are unaware of other neighbors being questioned. We had asked Ron and Lynn Stack next to us, as well as the two neighbors directly across from the road from us. All reported having no water pressure issues or incoming basement water issues. We couldn't ask the neighbor out back, Anita Hughes, as she passed away before any water issues had started. Her son lives in Burlington and the residence was empty. It was reported to us by the town that they didn't notice any water pressure issues in our area. The last one, performing leak detection in the area in question, didn't transpire until after we contacted the state and came to the select board. We found it very frustrating to be repeatedly told that our incoming water showed no signs of chlorine, and that this alone appeared to absolve the town from further investigating our concerns, especially when other personnel indicated it was likely a water line issue. We were also consistently informed by the town manager that the problem was due to an aquifer. However, the state hydrogeologist confirmed that this was not a plausible explanation. We believe the town should have exercised greater due diligence, including inspecting nearby water lines and those of adjacent properties to which we did not have access, particularly given that the water problem in our basement persisted for over 3.5 months. All we're looking for tonight is we need to do a claim. And those are the things that we need. And as a taxpayer and a resident in this town, it would really be super awesome if you had some kind of protocol that was followed. And as we said, most of that was followed except for the last piece, the detection of next. And we had indicated that throughout January and February, when there was a storm, it didn't freeze over that spot. And that was the spot they found the leak.
Did you say that is in one of the emails that you included in this document?
This is in that document, yeah. We have pictures from the time through January and February because we'd look out and we'd see there was no snow. We had reported that. And that's where the leak turned out to be. We weren't sure if it was a main water line or if it was Anita's water line. And it was ended up being Anita's water line.
So I am assuming we can get whatever paperwork necessary to help file a claim.
I'll reach out to VLCT tomorrow and provide them the list, and then I will provide you with what they send back.
Thank you.
Do we have any other questions for the Folmsbys related to this?
If you guys want any of the pictures, we can gladly give them. It's just that I'm not real good at sending things and they're all on my phone, so I have to have my wife, go through my wife to get it to you.
We also have kept copious documented. I'm an educator, that's my life, to document things that I need to have to go back and look at.
I would imagine if a claim needed to be filed, I don't feel that personally will be adjudicating any insurance claim, of course. So
Right.
I trust that the experts will take care of that. It does occur to me, and I'm curious if you've had any contact with the carrier for the homeowner's insurance on the vacant property next to yours.
It's deceased, it's in an An
Estate.
executor is in the probate. I don't know even what's going on with it.
Okay. I would imagine VLC for the minutes, guidance on that as well. Okay. I appreciate you providing us with all.
It's easier than me trying to say it and remember all of it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'd rather not. Who are you? Oh.
You can in or we can-
Yeah.
All right. Moving forward, amendments to the agenda. Do we have any amendments?
Yes, sir, a few today. A lot has happened since,
Sign-in sheet.
a lot has happened since the agenda was posted. Under new business, G, I'd propose to add, use of grant match funds for a Northern Borders grant. For H, also for the Northern Borders grant, the board needs to appoint me as the authorized official for that award, or for that grant, so that way we can continue with that. And then the highway financial plan has been finished, so I would, was that H or I? On I, I'd like to propose to put highway financial plan approval under new business.
What was the title of the appointment for H, did you say?
Appointment as the authorized official
Authorized official. Okay.
for the Northern Borders grant.
Highway financial
Plan.
plan. Might I make a single motion for all three of these, or should they be separate motions?
It can be a single motion, I suppose.
Then I'd like to make a motion to add the following items to our agenda under new business. That would be G, the use of grant match funds for the Northern Borders Grant. H, the appointment of Town Manager Joe Gunter as authorized official for same grant, Northern Borders Grant. And I, the Highway Financial Plan. The approval of same plan.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
The ayes have it. Next, we have approval of the minutes from March 31st.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as received.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion, corrections, additions, deletions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Department head reports.
Nate, do you want to talk about Public Works?
Yeah, that's fine. We had a busted DI on West Street. We had to cut that out and fix that. Done ditching on Airport Road, coal patching. We had one fellow that's been out for a while at the transfer station, so we've been filling in quite a bit down there and trying to pick up and all that. Other than that, we started working at the cemetery, started picking up all the stuff down there, so ongoing battle, keep going forward.
So we'll start with the, excuse me, we'll start with the police department report. The police had 81 traffic or municipal violations, so that's 718 so far this year, since January 1. 42 written warnings, 1 parking violation, 1 car crash, 9 overweight permits have been issued, and 13 sets of civilian fingerprints for employment have been done. That's 62 fingerprints this year, so we're doing good there. As a side note on that, we're one of the few departments where you can just walk in or have same-day appointments. And just today, somebody was in from Chittenden to get their fingerprints done. Yeah, so it's a unique service we provide. From my office, So just as a heads up to the residents and to the board, Tuesday the 21st, we're gonna start hydrant flushing, so you'll see the crew out there doing that. It was recommended that because we're diffusing the chlorine out of the water, that we put it into the storm system to help flush the storm system, or I'm sorry, not storm system, sewer system. So you'll see them trying that out. This is the first time we're trying it, so see how it goes. Also from the water plant, if anybody was following the water leak that was coming out of maybe around the inlet tube or somewhere in the rock face there, that water leak has stopped. So Mike told me yesterday, he says, good, it's either good or bad, he says that it's dried up. It could be that the rock has shifted. So we're still moving forward, we don't know why, so we're still moving forward with the investigation to see what's going on with that water.
I would imagine the possibility exists that the water is coming, now it has found a new path.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Just that hole has been plugged. So the question was, well, did the water go too low and now it's below the crack? And he said, no, the water's actually higher than it was. So we're still looking into that. We're not claiming victory on that. Okay. Northern Borders grant. So this is the grant that is to help do the engineering for the, what I'm calling the Hampton Housing Project down on Prospect Street. That grant is now with Rutland Regional Planning Commission. They're gonna do a review on it, and they'll get that back to me hopefully tomorrow. It is due on the 17th, which is Friday. Also on Friday, water and sewer budgets are due. I'll do the preliminary review. I think Terry's been picking away at it already for what's been rolling in. And then the select board will get a first look at it. Bear with me, let me look at my calendar. May 12th, so the first meeting in May. Nate touched on the storm drain on West Street. I'm not sure if I mentioned it the last meeting or not, but the audit was done and it was done on time. We got that back out to the bond bank and the Fed, so that's good to go. Ron, the gentleman from the auditing company, he'll be in on May 12th to talk to the board about, any findings. There were no findings, but anything that the board wants to talk about. And that's what I got for you.
On a related note regarding the water department, if I recall correctly, at the end of last summer, early fall, the water department got a new rig for their valve exerciser, or a new valve exerciser, and I was curious how far they had gotten in exercising valves around town last year and where they're at with that process.
I don't remember how far along they got. I know they got the major valves that they wanted to get done. But no, that process isn't over yet. We want to make sure we touch every valve just to make sure everything works.
Okay.
So that's also on the agenda for this summer. This is going to be an ongoing thing. It's never going to stop. Right.
Any other questions for Joe or Nate?
I was actually at the water plant today looking for the leak.
Find it?
It's kind of weird what happened. I don't know.
Yeah.
And it's not there.
Run my dowsing rods.
Yes.
Go ahead. Give it a try.
Yeah, so.
Old business, we've got cemetery fees, discussion and approval.
Okay, so at the last meeting, the board had discussed increasing cemetery fees based on what we found in the surrounding cemeteries. The question was asked, well, what does it cost the town to bury somebody? I provided a sheet. This is with almost everything, right? Public labor, my time, Eileen's time, Terry's time, equipment use, and that comes to $872. What this doesn't show though is, so this is just the cost to bury, right? This doesn't count the maintenance of the cemetery or repairing fences or wear and tear on the equipment. This is just a flat bottom line cost. So reviewing that and then looking at what other towns and cemeteries are charging, we still felt that the increasing to $1,200 for the full burial and the list there still was a reasonable cost. It covers the cost of the burial and it covers the cost of any future repairs and the wear and tear on our equipment.
Do you mean repairs to the headstone or repairs to the equipment?
Wear and tear on the equipment, but repairs to, say, like the cemetery fence, just as an example. A few years ago, we had to spend thousands on this because it rotted out. And, you know, if we're not charging properly for the burial, then that's coming out of taxpayer dollars.
Is there any stated or implied maintenance done to monuments and headstones that are meant to be factored into the cost of burial?
There is perpetual care, and that's already in the fee for the gravesite.
Okay.
And I think Mary's here, she would know better than I do, but I think in fact, I know the cemetery committee does send money back to the town on an annual basis to help with that perpetual care.
I have a question. Who determines the price of the plots? Where's that arise from? Is that a fee that,
I think that's your decision.
should that be addressed also? I mean, I'm just asking questions here. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't, so since I've been here, now it's going on, it's almost 9 years. We haven't touched burials, we haven't touched cemetery plots, we haven't touched transfer station fees. In fact, just also as an aside, I was going through town reports, and dump stickers cost $10 back in 1983. So it's been a couple years for that same fee. So no, if the board wants to, we can open that back up, yeah.
well, it's not that I want to, it's just that we can't keep going backwards in the past and try to move forward at the same time. So I know it's a hard decision for everybody, but we can't keep going like this.
Yep.
Maybe the cemetery committee could put some insight into this and get back to us, who's ever gotta make that decision. I don't know what property burials are going for, I have no idea. But somebody probably knows somewhere.
We could do some research.
Yeah.
Well, that's, select board sets the price for the lot.
I know, but I wouldn't have any idea what to tell you it should cost at this point. Follow me? I
Yeah, you
don't,
must have a record. I mean,
We
would you just
we can do
say
some research, Mr.
$800?
Greeno.
well, I'm sure, we have a record of the
That
past,
seems like
but
a
I mean,
lot, but,
what's the going rate, I should say? No idea.
you'd have to check other towns, I guess, yeah, we could do that, I guess.
And we can revisit the cost of the plot itself. I think the issue on the table today is covering the expenses that we incur as a town for the burial itself. So, what would the board like to do with this information? Do I hear any motions for increasing the cemetery fees to cover these costs?
I don't know if anyone's eager to make that motion here, but it does seem plain that our costs are not what they ought to be, or our fees rather are not what they ought to be to cover costs. So I'll be the one to make that motion, provided, well, I suppose we'll do the discussion, but the proposed fees that we have here, that they're to everyone's liking. I don't think we need to jump to a decision on this today if there's still any hesitance on anyone's part that these proposed fees are where they ought to be. Should we discuss first or motion first?
We would motion first.
Okay. Then in that case, I'll be the first to make the motion that we adopt the newly proposed burial fees in this outline. And do I need to lay those out one by one, or? Gotcha. I will make the motion to adjust the cemetery fees as follows: that full burial be adjusted to $1,200, full burial after hours or weekend to $1,400, cremation to $500, and cremation after hours or weekends to $600.
Wait, your second.
Respectively.
I'll second that.
So, point of discussion, I think it's really important to point out that we are outpacing our fees with costs to the town. So we're supplementing this service with property tax, and it's not a sustainable thing to do. You know, I'm not excited about adjusting fees, but at the same time, we have to make sure that we're covering costs. So that's my 2 cents on this.
Yeah, just questioning, when I was doing some research myself on the cost, and these aren't out by any means, I don't see where they often offer Sunday burials. Why do we offer a weekend burial, not a Saturday burial?
Interesting question.
It's my understanding a lot of places don't even offer the weekend.
No, they don't. That's what I was seeing as I was researching the prices myself.
Apparently we do it as a service.
Should we be limiting that to, if you get a Sunday burial, Nate, does that mean you have to come in on a Saturday on overtime and then do the Sunday burial?
Well, we dig it during the week.
If we know it, correct?
Yeah, if we know ahead of time, then we dig it during the week, then on Sunday we'll show up.
But if it's somebody that calls in on a Friday for a Sunday burial, you guys are already out, correct?
Yeah, we kinda make it a point though to dig it on
Try to dig,
Saturday,
yeah, you know, I just wonder if we should be limiting it to, not to take out a weekend, but limiting it to Saturday only and not Sunday.
Out of curiosity, what number of our burials take place on the weekends? Over the last 5 years, how many of them have been on weekends versus weekdays?
Well, probably a lot on Saturday, I would think.
A lot on
Yeah,
Saturday.
I would think so.
But there is a
I
few
mean-
on Sunday.
I would make that assumption too, but I don't want to rush to an assumption. I'd rather. This is another question I would have for.
Yeah, I'm a little more in favor of having the flexibility rather,
Full weekend?
yeah, rather than kind of painting ourselves into a corner with just saying Saturdays, because we don't know what will come up. That's my thinking on that.
And just because we offer the service doesn't mean that we have to honor it in every single instance. I would imagine if we don't have the workers to do a burial on a Saturday, we can't do a burial on a Saturday, right? So just merely setting a fee for it doesn't lock us into doing it all the time necessarily, I wouldn't think.
I don't think we've probably ever turned one down, have we?
Well, I wouldn't offer it and then say, oh, you can have it,
Well,
but not you.
Sure,
'Cause
no,
can't
I
find
don't
anybody. Nobody's gonna believe that.
I don't mean to say that we would arbitrarily say you can have weekend and you can't, but if the reality of the situation where on a given weekend the crew just wasn't available, well,
Yeah, but I'm
then
saying that, what I'm saying is that if you said that, they're not gonna believe you. You know, they're gonna say, oh, you know, you're just saying that 'cause it's me, you know.
That's fair. I'm not sure if it's reason enough for me to think that we should stop offering the service entirely, though. I think I'd rather have it be an option on the table if it's something that people find valuable.
But that's also perhaps a different point for a different day.
Yeah.
Because right now we're discussing
Agreed.
the fees itself.
Fee, right, we can change the date.
My opinion is, as being a taxpayer in town also, that we should offer it, but we should not let this go down the road for another 15 or 20 years. Our future people, these need to be kept
Adjusted.
up to date.
Yep.
At least every couple of years, so we don't get so far in the hole.
Does the cemetery commission have bylaws of their own? I would imagine those they do. Yes. If so, I would think that would be something we could amend to the bylaws, that there be a semi-annual or rather a biannual. Oh, sorry. No, but would it, is there not a governing document for the cemetery commission though, is all I mean to say.
No, there's documents in our policies.
So if the board wants, we could just make it part of our like reorganization of the meeting after reorg. Here are all your fees, do you want to change it? And we could just make it part of our annual new board, kind of intro. That'd be easy to do, that's just a matter of.
Sorry, do we not treat the meeting, and I know this is far afield from the motion, but do we not treat the meeting of the cemetery commission as distinct from the meeting of the select board? Is it not have its own agenda?
I think you guys are,
treated,
you
or are
guys
they
are the
merged
cemetery
into
commission.
one?
You are the cemetery commissioners,
Yeah.
just like the water commissioners.
But do we not have separate agendas for meetings of the cemetery commission and meetings of the select board? We don't.
There's
Okay.
a cemetery committee, not a committee.
Okay.
Cemetery committee,
Yeah.
not a separate, yeah.
Okay.
That hasn't changed yet, Joe.
The only reason I hesitate to suggest that we do it during reorganization is because we're already doing so much during reorganization that to add an additional thing, it seems like it would be more advantageous to us to make that a priority during a less busy time of the year, perhaps. But no less important that we codify it, I think. To Rich's point, it should be something that's
I
re-examined
think
on
it
a
should be
regular
addressed
basis.
every year, to be perfectly honest with you.
Okay.
I mean, inflation goes up, goes down, everything, it just, you know, to run a business, you gotta really keep track of everything every year.
So, annually, we are off topic, but annually, I asked the board, like, what do you want to see in your budget? We could do it at that meeting, because that's gonna be just before the budget hits. You could review your, revenues. Yeah, it would be just before the budget starts, but at least then you'd have a sense on what the fees look like.
That's interesting.
And it'd be before the busiest point.
So bringing us back to our original motion, we've got a motion, we've got a second. Is there any more discussion on the proposed fee schedule?
Rich, you did a lion's share of the research, I think, on the comparison prices that we were looking at, right?
Yes, from what I gathered, and I had help from a couple of the local funeral directors also,
Okay.
as well as Granville area. So they, believe it or not, a couple of those folks came to me and said, you guys really should adjust your pricing.
Okay.
And that's really what got me thinking and started the ball rolling, was that.
Not to shift the responsibility for the decision onto you in any way, but I'm inclined to, if you think these fees seem reasonable, I'm inclined to defer to your educated.
They're average to everybody else right now. Matter of fact, still a
This is just
little bit shy of everybody else. So, that being said, I can't say they're wrong.
Okay. Do we feel ready to make a vote?
That's my question to you all. So we know what we're doing on the motion. We've got a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Transfer station fees, discussion and approval.
Okay, so back to transfer station fees. We have made a little bit of headway, just as an aside to this conversation, we have made a little bit of a headway looking for ways to increase revenue. But still, as it stands today, we're still recommending the 100% budget coverage, which brings us to $340 a ton. A $30 annual permit, which covers your recycling costs, and then making a few adjustments, like tires would be at scale fee instead of based on size. And mattresses would stay at $38.
So, this is still a hard one to swallow, and I still can't swallow it yet. So, Joe's already done, we've already done quite a bit of the work. I think you've seen some food waste, the scrap steel we're working on.
Tin, aluminum.
So to zero sort's very expensive. It's costing us a lot of money for our zero sort program. We have to go away from zero sort. Tin aluminum would be separated. And if we can separate our aluminum, even better from that for a revenue source. Metal, going away from Casellas and going to another vendor. Currently, we only get $35 a ton for haul, or metal that's hauled out. When we checked a week and a half ago, earth waste was 100 a ton, with a smaller haul fee. Joe's still working on hauling fees. And M&B's was 150 a ton if we hauled it in ourselves. So there's some room there. The rest of the zero sort plastic is really big. The water bottles, when we get a lot of water bottles in there, bigger containers that aren't crushed. We're only getting a very light load, 0.35 ton, not even at 221 a haul. We're averaging on the spreadsheet that Terry made us 7 to 11 hauls a month on that zero sort container at 221. So we've been talking about trying to get a 40-yarder positioned where we can put just plastic in and be able to crush it. Joe's working on possibly a baler, working on, if that don't work, the backhoe is an option. It is, you're chasing a lot of plastic around with a bucket though. So it'd take time for somebody to sit there. I've also been working on getting brown paper and the box board into the cardboard bin. We're still waiting for a response on that. Contract shows that it's part of cardboard. It's separate, but it says cardboard. So if we can put it in the bin and crush it in with that, we can get rid of the Gaylords. Frees up some guys' time, number one. Number two, we're paying a pretty good rate to get them pulled. Over 600 every time we get them hauled. And we're not seeing any revenue in from that.
Now it's 600 per container.
No, it's 600. It was like 636. It's PCB Incorporated. They charge us for a hauling fee for that. And it's 630. It's whenever we call, and I believe it's a semi-load is what it is. 687 Chen CAN USA Hershey. So 637. Then there was another load for 440. There don't seem to be, it's whenever we call in. If we can get in with cardboard we're actually might be a little revenue in it, very, very little revenue in it. But we can crush it ourselves with the backhoe and that 40-yarder. And so there's still more places we can adjust revenue and labor. We have to work on labor rate more. We have to tighten up overtime on weekends, which we can discuss that. I don't know, can we discuss that now, Joe? Labor, weekend? What? So with people out, we've been having to use our normal road crew. Nate has been using his normal crew to backfill. So our overtime is extreme currently because the guys have already worked a 40-hour week. You get to a Saturday, they're 8 hours at least overtime on a Saturday. It's probably over 8 and 8, I'm guessing. That's a longer day than 8 on the transfer station.
9 hours on
Yeah,
Saturday.
so 9 hours on a Saturday. So I've been floating using temps, 8-temp temps instead of that. Talked about it a little more today. So maybe we can make it work, and that would cut some pretty good expense pictures on.
Yeah, would we have to take a look at our labor contract?
No, I think we came to a pretty good deal today. with just kind of thinking it through yeah, I think we have a good answer for it.
Okay.
I'm not trying to be obtuse about it, I need to implement it before I can say, this is what
Yeah.
happened, so.
Yeah, it's a two-step process here to get to that point. But, I feel we're still a little bit early to trick that price. We still got a little time.
Well, and that's what I'm thinking too, right? Like today, the discussion is the fee, but it looks like we're finding efficiencies that we're gonna implement potentially soon. That, and I look at the transfer station revenue to date, and our usage fees are only 64% of what our projected revenue is for that line item. Like, our usage is down. Why is it down? Is it down because folks don't have the same need? Is it down because usually it falls short in the winter and kicks up back in the spring or the summer? What will increasing the fees do to that usage? And are we gonna see less usage? Or will the usage stay the same and the fees will cover the expenses? Because that's my concern there.
I agree. We've
So-
been looking at usage for a month.
Yeah, I personally would like to see more efficiencies in place before we consider what the fee should be. But we do have to make change because we are supplementing the expenses with property taxes. You were gonna say something?
Well, part of the reason I think our usage is down, if you drive around town, there's probably 4 or 5 different waste vendors in town collecting garbage from individual households. There's Casella, there's Ace, there's Martell, there's several different ones that you see. So that's product that's not coming into our system. And I don't know if we could ever get that back or not. They pay a lot more for that service than they would ever pay going to the town landfill transfer. And I don't know why, it's a convenience for them or what. But
So that brings
I
up
think that's what's happening.
That brings up a larger question, right? Which is our looking ahead to our future. Can we continue to sustain a transfer station?
We don't have a choice. I don't feel we have a choice whatsoever in it. You're not gonna see any of them vendors taking mattresses, box springs, tires.
Maybe not the vendors, but I think about
We don't wanna pick that garbage up off the side of the roads. I still think no matter what, we have to maintain a transfer station. No matter what, I really feel that need is there.
Lord knows we do already get enough alongside the highways.
Yeah, we just went up with mattresses on the current one, and it's still not meeting what we're paying for mattresses. So we're still behind the 8 ball on mattress and box spring. Tires were behind. One other thing I did give you guys a sheet with transfer station capital reserve funds, and it shows available funds there for 19,500. We've been floating around the moving to an open top 40-yarder for the plastic. No matter what, we're gonna have to make another wall or work on walls, work on a layout that is better. Town crew can do this, but it's gonna cost a little bit for materials. So, was in question of when the time comes up, we got the wall to do, and we need to update our system, our operator maintenance system, so probably not ready tonight to ask for some money, but we need to, hopefully in 2 weeks, we can come up with it, maybe.
I'm not gonna commit to
I know,
that.
but we gotta
there's a
keep,
lot
we
going
gotta
on.
get moving, so we can get,
There are,
but we gotta get a retaining system built to finish this zero sort issue out. See that, or we're gonna keep spending thousands a month in hauling fees. It's going up now with fuel fees on top of it. So this is something I really need to work out, but You know, it might be just a couple $1,000 to do that project, maybe, to do just the retaining wall, get that set up. Because we do still have some materials left over from the salt shed, and I think there was some still down at the transfer station to build with.
So what would the board like to do tonight regarding the fees? Is this something we want to stop looking at right now and revisit later? Or is this something that we want to hear a motion on?
I think we're all in agreement we don't want the transfer station losing money. I think we're all in agreement that it's complicated. We want to seek efficiencies before we determine final and set prices for increases. However, I wonder if there are any of these fees that we already know are lower than they ought to be, even when comparing to other transfer stations, that we might consider an intermediate step where we slightly increase the prices just to be in parity with what our competitors are doing, what our other towns are doing, and then we address the larger issues down the road as we see fit. Does that strike anyone as a possibility?
Well, sounds like you've got a motion kind of.
Well, I don't, if only because I think these proposed increases are to completely address the deficit that we're seeing. Whereas what I'm suggesting is an intermediate step that might put these prices somewhere lower.
I don't know that they really are addressing everything. For instance, Box Spring, they're still under what we have to pay to get rid of them.
Tires are under.
But that would be a place to start. That is what I mean exactly. So like if we know mattresses, we're not charging enough. That's plain and simple. We increase that price as soon as possible. Same for tires. Same for those categories. Let's as soon as possible change the number so it's where it ought to be, and then we can address the larger systemic issue as we get more information.
So what would your motion be?
But it does.
I don't want to make a motion for specific prices because I don't know.
No, you gotta give us a little bit more time to get that together.
Yeah, because these mattress fees are taking into consideration, like this proposed mattress fee is if we were also increasing the scale fee and the bag fee, and so when all of these things are working together, I don't know that these are the numbers we want a motion for.
Well, I mean, I know it ain't really my turn, but, well, the number that it got, what was it, 340 a ton? I mean, that is your number. That is 100%. That covers the transfer station.
I understand, but it sounds like there's
I know
some.
you don't wanna like raise it up so high, but like the 340 ton is the number for 100% cost down there. So going through each individual one is not correcting it, cause you're still losing. 'Cause at the end of the day, you still gotta get up to that 340.
I understand. What I mean to say is we were discussing the possibility that we might lower our expenses through efficiencies at the transfer station, and if we do that, we might not have to increase those other costs by quite as much in order to cover expenses, but we don't know if we can do that yet. So in the meantime, before we jump to setting a new, much higher price for things like the scale fee and the bag fee, if we just address the certain categories that we know, plain and simple, they're too low, like the mattresses and the tires and etc., that maybe that would be a good intermediate step towards a larger shift.
So if the board really did want to take a step, I think a good spot to start would be moving tire fees to as opposed to using size as the determinant of the fee, to scale fee. Just because we did have a couple tractor tires that came in 2 weeks ago and we had to charge them the rate that we were supposed to charge them, but that didn't nearly cover our costs. They should have been scaled. That would be a good spot to start.
Current Casella contract on tires is $250 a ton.
There you go.
Okay. And since you've been taking the lead on this, Dennis, I'm kind of looking to you to know what your thoughts are on that proposal.
We should have done it a while ago.
So,
Any others we might want to consider doing here and now?
Mattress and box spring, I believe it was 45. I'm trying to find it.
I think that's what I see somewhere was $45.
$45 for mattress, each mattress,
Yeah.
box spring. Not mattress and box spring, it's separate. It's a lot of money for a mattress and box spring.
45 for a mattress, 45 for a box spring.
I can't, it's gotta be on a separate contract. How about you give us a week or 2 weeks to get that together? That way we can be sure on
Table it for 2 weeks.
2 weeks and then we'll come back with a good,
We got sturdy tables around here. We're gonna table that one, it seems.
we can do tires. I'm confident with tires, but
Do we feel comfortable approaching it in that manner? I mean, I know that might be something of a shock for the community to like see small changes over time in that way, and we might have thought it would be better to do it all at once, but what do we think the temperature is on that? I don't know.
People are gonna be upset, doesn't matter what.
how we do it.
Yeah, fees haven't been raised in over 10 years and people are still upset.
A little at a time may be better to accept though.
Okay.
It's gotta
I
be.
just wanna have you guys maybe think about one thing. I was discussing this with my husband, and he was like, well, if it gets too much, he'd be more than happy to pay one of the rubbish contractors to save him having to go to the dump. He's doing it now because it's cheaper. But, so I don't know if maybe you guys wanna get do some pricing with the rubbish contractors. You know, cause you were talking about that, usage has gone down. And Rich was gonna say the exact same thing, Rich said the exact same thing I was going to point out. More and more people are contracting to have their rubbish taken.
I pay almost $70 a month.
I just don't know that we have enough data to know the exact extent to which that is taking place. That may very well be the trend, but I don't think we have that in front of us.
Refuge and C&D's not going down, so that's the problem with that. We're seeing a lower, so we could just be missing windshield stickers, is what it could come down to, because our refuge, so MSW and C&D hasn't changed. It maybe it's even gone up. So, without literally somebody standing right there at the gate with their whip cracking, it could just be that. But we don't know that.
And some of the decline in usage, to Chad's earlier point, might be seasonal, which we haven't looked at.
I just wanted to,
Yeah.
I discussed a lot of this stuff with my husband,
Yeah. And I agree. I don't think anybody, I mean, some people might go to the dump simply for the love of doing it, and I do enjoy it in a way, but I think if it were cheaper for me to have my trash collected, I would be having my trash collected. So I'm like your husband, I'm doing it because it's cheaper, and I wouldn't want to see it fall out of line with what the cost is for collection.
For tonight, I would like to make a motion that we change the tire disposal fee to $250 a ton on all tires.
I'll second that.
For clarity, we're tying it to the scale fee, yes? So if the scale fee were to go up in the future,
No, tires
is that not?
$250 a ton.
Okay,
That
for
gives
tires.
us zero profit, so we're handling them tires with people, manpower, backhoe, whatever. When there's no profit in that at $250. That's just what it's cost, at least it's getting us to what it's costing us.
Okay, I'll second the motion to raise the fee for tires to $250 on the scale.
Ton, $250 a
Ton,
ton.
$250 a ton on the scale.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
I
I have 2 seconds here.
do. I noticed that.
Oh, sorry.
So you got a
Rich
third?
was the first.
Rich made the motion?
No, he was the
Oh,
first
I don't-
second.
Rich was
no,
first.
Then we had a second.
He can have the honors.
Sorry, I don't know how I missed that. My bad, quick.
I'm not so,
So
I just love the idea so much.
Sam.
I believe I heard 3 ayes. Any opposed?
I,
You're opposed?
no,
Oh.
no, I'm the fourth eye.
It's, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. We did it. We did something. We did it. Moving forward. Chicken ordinance discussion.
Okay, so at the, I think it was the last meeting, a resident came in and asked, would the board consider changing the what I'm calling the chicken ordinance, but it's the keeping of animals in our zoning regulations. And then here we are today.
So, I was going to say, I think where we tabled this is we wanted to look into what we wanted to do as select board members. Cynthia was great in providing us with some ordinances from other municipalities. And so I want to open the discussion, because we tabled it last time, to say, what is the interest of the board to make a recommendation to the planning commission, or zoning, planning?
This would be you guys.
This would be an ordinance then.
This is,
not
yeah,
necessarily. Okay. So what's our appetite for it? Because we need to have a decision one way or another.
I would like to preempt this discussion by adding some additional context that we did not have the last time we discussed this issue. It's come to my attention that a bill was recently passed by the House and is under review by the Senate, H941. And that bill would prohibit municipalities from including any rules prohibiting the keeping of poultry, either in their ordinances or in their bylaws. Which is to say, our existing language about chickens in our bylaws would be superseded by this new state law if it were to go into effect. There's no indication. I've talked to our state representatives and senators and asked them what their opinion is of how likely this bill is to move forward from the Senate. And I haven't gotten the sense that they feel confident to say one way or the other. But any work that we might do to review our chicken bylaws, in the zoning bylaws, might be rendered irrelevant in the very near future. It's entirely possible. And that leads me to the conclusion that maybe this conversation is best left until after the legislative session is complete, out of an interest of not overtaxing the planning commission needlessly, or doing something frivolous.
Is that in this year's,
Yes.
in this year now?
But it can
The bill passed the House, and then it was referred to the Senate Committee for Government Operations, where Senator Collmore referred it to the Committee on Agriculture, feeling that it was more fitting there. And that's where it is as of the 7th of April. So it doesn't look like there's been any movement since then. Again, we can't see the future here, but
And I did redo everything a couple times. I did a fantastic job, by the way, thank you. The only thing I see in this whole thing that I don't agree with would be the violation and enforcement area. So everything else, I think she did fantastic. It's whether the people want chickens or don't want chickens, so that's up to the board to decide whether, at that point. Enforcement wise, I think it's just a simple one warning, and second time they're gone. But if the state's gonna override all that at this point.
Comment on that?
Yeah.
I totally am all for people having chickens if they want chickens, as long as they're responsible chicken owners. We have been dealing with neighbors who have an illegal farm. This town gave them a letter from the attorney telling them to get rid of it last July. It is still there. So I'm just a little bit concerned about just opening it up to anybody to just have whatever they want, because it does affect other abutting properties.
absolutely.
You can't enjoy being outside because you can't stand the smell. Even in January.
Just in response to your concern, no one has proposed that we open it up to everyone without any restrictions. The discussion was around how to reform the bylaws in a way to allow
Right.
more people to keep chickens, specifically on smaller lots. That would be kind of the primary concern.
I watched the meeting,
Okay,
but it's about the enforcement side of that.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I just don't want to give anyone who might be watching the impression that we're doing away with chicken restrictions wholesale.
Right.
That's not our intention, at least we haven't discussed that at this point.
And it's allowing someone who's responsible and is, keeping, thinking about all of the other issues that come along with those chickens. and respecting their neighbors, I'm all for that. But the way it is now, we're not getting what we need.
Understood.
If and when the board does take this up, after the after the legislative session, is it possible you could set up a permit? And then if they don't, the person, you get the permit, you have the chickens, if they don't take care of them the right way, your permit's revoked. I just a suggestion if and when it comes along.
It's entirely possible, and in fact, it was one of the items in Cynthia's, I don't want to say manifesto, that sounds. But it was suggested, and I think that would be entertained, certainly, or I think there's a good reason to entertain that.
Other towns are doing that already.
Enforcement, though.
I can't hear you, Rich.
You have a health
Those are the towns
officer, I
that
would think
had
they would
that in
be
there
in
for-
contact.
We've been dealing with it for 2 years.
Part of the issue that we're faced with is, and this was pointed out last week, or last meeting too, regardless of what our ordinance says, we've got an enforcement issue. It is very difficult to enforce as a municipality. So we've got some work to do to try to figure out how we are going to enforce our current ordinance. And if we make a change to the ordinance, how we're going to enforce that ordinance. I think if the board would like to open up the gates for more chickens, what it sounds like we need to do is create an ordinance that is not necessarily centered around restriction, but good chicken keeping, right? And if the board is not interested in looking at our ordinance at this time, it sounds like the state may force our hand if the bill passes. So what is the thinking of this board? Does the board wish to open up our ordinance and make changes to pet keeping?
My opinion would be whether or not we refer it to the planning commission review, that our direction be that they need not begin discussing any substantive changes until after the legislative session ends, or the bill were voted down by the Senate or vetoed by the governor. I just think it would be bad for us to spend our time working on something that then is completely made irrelevant.
I would agree.
Can I just chime in a little? So if the chicken thing passes with the state, wouldn't it be beneficial to have, if you do decide permitting chickens, regardless of what the state decides, wouldn't it make sense to be like ahead of the game so that we have parameters for responsible chicken keeping?
I want to clarify what the language of the bill says, and what it says is it is outside, if it were to pass, it would be outside of the municipality's authority to write any kind of legislation, ordinances, or bylaws around the keeping of chickens. So it wouldn't be getting ahead of the game. It would, anything we said about who's allowed to keep it, where they're allowed to keep it, when they're allowed to keep it, that would be out of our hands. It would then fall to the state to determine what the rules
So
should
it'd
be.
be all chickens for all until the state changes?
It would be what the state determines, and I do not know what the state would determine. I don't know what the rules would be.
We won't even be able to enforce it.
All I know is it would not be our responsibility, and we would not be legally allowed to enforce anything, or to create any kind of law. And that's my understanding. I have talked to VLCT, and as I mentioned, our representatives and senators about it. They've confirmed that understanding. But if that changes, or you come to a different understanding, please feel free to correct me.
I didn't know that it was at the state.
That's what I'm aware of so far. Yes.
Hi, Susan Travers. Wondering, about 35 years ago, this goes way back, I'm old, there was a blue law in Fairhaven on the park that would allow farm animals to exist on the park.
In the park.
Are there any blue laws that you know of left that someone could jump in? I mean, that's just something you might want to
I've
look at.
never even heard the term
Yes.
blue law before, I apologize.
No, I'm
Oh,
sure
I
you
think
have.
you're young.
You're young, there were blue laws, and there was a blue law on the park in Fairhaven.
Yeah.
And the farm, you know,
The law requires the park to only be maintained with a lot of stuff.
right,
Yeah.
yeah. Is that
And
still, like?
no building
has that-
could be on it.
And no building could be on
I think
it.
it's maintained by Luke Vadnais now, and I don't think he has any sheep, but.
Just saying, somebody could put their chickens there. That might be something you want to look into, because it did exist.
Get rid of.
And at least get rid of that. That did exist.
I do think they did away
I
with
could
it.
give you more detail on how I know that, but I'm not gonna throw the person under the bus.
We'll have to explore our archives for
Yeah.
that law. Yeah.
I'll make a motion that we table the chicken ordinance until after the 2026 legislative session comes to an end, and they make a decision.
I'll second that.
I don't think we need a motion to table it.
Okay, just table it.
So, yeah, we've got 3 folks who want to table it, so we'll table it.
That's a lot of chicken folded paper, by the way.
I just want to add, since you've been taking the time to come, Cynthia, and I really appreciate
Yeah.
your interest in this, and to everyone who's come.
We've done a good job with it.
I just want to add that,
Enforcement.
sorry, I just want to add,
Nobody's-
I just want to add that I really appreciate you coming. I will be following this bill on its life cycle through the Senate very closely. So I have not forgotten about this, and I will be paying attention, I promise.
Fabulous. So what's gonna be the enforcement then? There's at least half a dozen properties in town that have chickens and have ducks, and they've had them for years. So are we going to enforce it, or are we just gonna keep flying under the radar? It's frustrating.
So the way I operate is if I know that there's a problem, we address it. If I don't know, obviously you can't address a problem that you don't know about. The problems we know about, they have been sent to the lawyer, but chickens are remarkably difficult to deal with because they have to go through the state court system. And right now, it requires lawyers to handle it, multiple letters to go out, and everybody's in the pipeline somewhere. But it's very, very difficult to handle chickens, just the way it's set up in zone.
Oh my gosh, I'm calling my school.
Okay.
But I hear you, it's,
Okay.
Moving, oh, yes.
if the board is amenable, could we move the municipal resolution up to A? I know Devin Neary's here, and I think there are a few other people in the audience that would like to hear about this one.
I will make a motion to move item C under new business ahead in order to precede item A.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any other ayes? I heard one audible aye.
Oh, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I
I didn't hear it.
Turn your internet off.
If I don't hear it, I gotta do roll call, and that's a whole ordeal. I don't want to do that. All right, municipal resolution.
So we brought Devin Neary, he graciously volunteered to come and speak to the select board about this resolution and what it means to be a tier 1B town.
All right, so I drafted a memo, hopefully you all received it, I did print it out, so you have a copy along with an Act 181 FAQ. These specifically speak to what Act 181 means relative to the Rutland Regional Plan. So we have been working on an update to this Rutland Regional Plan since October of 2023. In July of 2024 is when Act 181 was signed into law. At that time, it established a new location-based framework for Act 250, location-based framework for Act 250, which establishes 3 tiers. So our role as regional planning commissions is to update our regional plans and draft a regional future land use map. That regional future land use map you all are very aware of, because we've had several drafts and iterations working directly with the planning commission, with the select board, to ensure that that draft reflects the priorities of the town, but also meets statutory framework and the mapping methodology set out by the Vermont Association of Planning Development Agencies. So we are on the 1 yard line Today, you all should have received an email from me warning for our final public hearing, which will take place on May 19th. At that time, we'll be asking the RRPC Board of Commissioners to adopt the Rutland Regional Plan and the future land use map. At that time, if the adoption is successful, we'll be submitting that regional plan and map to the Land Use Review Board for approval. Once the Land Use Review Board approves that map, it is set and establishes the new towns eligible for Tier 1B. So we only focus on Tier 1B. The Tier 1A, which is, and I'll go over what those two tiers mean, is a separate application directly to the Land Use Review Board after our plan is submitted. So Tier 1B, that is partial Act 250 exemption for housing or mixed use development of 50 units or less on 10 acres or less within what we call the core four. So downtowns, village centers, planned growth areas, and village areas. Fairhaven has a substantial amount of planned growth area and village center mapped within the core of the town. All of these areas which are mapped under those future land use categories would be eligible under the Tier 1B exemption. Now, politically, Act 181 is really seeing a challenge right now, and I'm glad that this has been taken to the legislature and it's being heard seriously and considered for potential repeal of certain provisions. We've been at this now, like I said, for more than 2.5 years. Act 181 work since July of 2024. We have heard significant issue from our municipalities in the Rutland region around two elements that they're very concerned about. Tier 3, the critical natural resource, and Tier 2, specifically the road rule. So for Tier 3, that rulemaking is still forming by the Land Use Review Board, but Tier 3 would potentially increase Act 250 jurisdiction in areas that are deemed critical natural resources by the Land Use Review Board. There's a draft map out, but that process has stalled because of the activity in the legislature around a potential repeal of some of those provisions or a delay at the minimum. Tier 2 road rule is also jurisdictional for development that includes 800 feet of new driveway or 2,000 feet of a combination of driveway and private or public road. So there have been concerns specifically levied around the rural areas within our region and whether new jurisdictions of Act 250 would apply. Those details have not been fully formed because it's still going through the rulemaking process. So out comes Senate 325. This bill is looking to delay Tier 2 road rule till 2028 and Tier 3 until 2030. I was in the legislature on Friday, and I can tell you a delay of those two provisions is not going to cut it. That folks are expecting a full repeal of those two provisions. It has been my experience from this being a very much bottom-up approach and regional planning commissions really being the only entity that's boots on the ground during this exercise, that if we had those two provisions repealed, the region would feel a heck of a lot better about this bill. That being said, why I wanted to come to speak to you all today is I didn't have this chance to speak before Castleton, and they acted upon Act 181 by repealing the whole thing. They sent a letter to the legislature and the Land Use Review Board saying, we oppose this law, and as such, we are going to opt out of Tier 1B. Why I wanted to come to you all today is I would caution against that. Not writing a letter. I hope you do, and I hope you voice your opinions on the issues of Act 21 around road rule and Tier 3. What I don't want to see and what I fear might happen is if a town like Fairhaven were to say, you know what, we hate Act 21 wholesale, we're opting out of Tier 1B, what that could mean for limiting your potential for development in the future. Fairhaven, we believe, is one of them, has some of the greatest opportunity for development of specifically housing and right-scaled housing, right? Housing that we can actually afford and housing that is the right size for our young families and people who live in our community. You all have some really important projects kind of in the pipeline, right? Former racetrack, the former Green Mountain Mobile Manor Park, other areas in town that are sort of open for development. Right now, what could happen is if you guys decided to, we want to make our position known and write a letter of opposition to the Land Use Review Board and the legislature saying, hey, we really don't like these two provisions because they limit rural, residential, and business development, which is possibly true, and that is a concern because what we have found, our data shows that while these growth areas are great and we want to remove barriers to development, the majority of housing development in our region in the state of Vermont has been developed outside of these areas. These areas are targeted because they've got zoning, they've got water and sewer, they make development a little bit more feasible because right now the issue, in my opinion, isn't Act 250, it's capital. This region just does not have capital to build housing at scale. So if we can remove that barrier, that'd be one step, but it's not gonna mean tomorrow you guys are gonna have hundreds of units. So if you guys decided to opt out, which I am open for questions and conversation about what that means both ways. If you decide to opt out, that means you will not be included in our list of Tier 1B communities when we submit our plan in May. That being said, we are planning to reopen and amend our plan later this year because we have two communities, Benson and Pittsford, that due to a town plan expiration are currently not eligible, but they will be once their town plan is readopted. So we're planning to make sure that any communities that didn't meet the mark have a chance to get back in. S325 is moving quickly. I spoke to committee chairs on Friday. There's a good chance that some of this will resolve sooner than later, but there's no guarantee. What I'd hate to see happen is if you all decided to opt out and within a month they repeal those two provisions, and then for the next 6 months plus, you guys no longer have the benefit of being eligible for Tier 1B and having that partial Act 250 exemption. We know that in our region there are developers waiting in the wind for our plan to be adopted so they can start work on housing because they don't want to go through Act 250. Who would want to do that if you didn't have to? The time and the money is significant. So, if you guys have questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them. In my opinion, and what I wrote in that letter is Tier 1B opt-in is a no-lose situation. But if you feel inclined and obligated to oppose Act 181, specifically those provisions limiting rural development, I would encourage that and support your decision to do so. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Do you guys have any thoughts or questions on that? One other element I do want to mention is this town and your planning commission have worked really hard to get you eligible up to this point, passing subdivision regulations, working on your downtown designation, doing all the things to make sure you meet those prerequisites. And it would be a shame to see that work fall by the wayside and opt out when there's so much potential on the table.
I think you left someone off the list, and that would be the Rutland Regional Planning Commission and you and Logan, who put in so much work to get us to this point, which I really want to recognize before you leave.
Well, thank you. When you guys ask for help, we show up. That's what we do. And, we don't need the accolades. We just want to see you guys thrive. This is my hometown. I want to see it succeed. So yeah.
So this won't affect the downtown designation right now unless it's fully repealed?
So the downtown designation is kind of on a parallel course right now. So it won't impact this either way. In a future iteration of the plan, we would convert your village center to a downtown. And that's more likely to unlock some financial incentives.
And that's the paperwork you sent out today, right?
The paperwork I sent out today is about the final hearing for the Rutland Regional Plan, which kicks off in motion all these sort of steps that lead to Tier 1B potential.
Devin, I have two questions.
Yeah.
Question one, if the board signs the resolution to become a Tier 1B town, are they still subject to all of, 181?
Yeah,
In theory,
yes, as of today,
As
yes.
of today. If the board votes to not become a Tier 1B town, is the town still subject to 181?
Yes.
So it doesn't matter what they do, we could protest all day long, but we're still under 181 until the Senate, or the legislature repeals it.
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
so Tier 1B will give us a break on our Act 250 the rules on Act 250. And that would be the benefit from this. There would be no downside to sign.
Correct. Yeah, no cost to the town.
Just making sure.
Only is a benefit if developers choose to use that benefit. So it's kind of like your village center. If you decide to do nothing with it, it just exists in perpetuity. But if you decide to utilize that financial or regulatory benefit, then it will be realized.
May I speak? I'm from Castleton. I was at the select board meeting in Castleton last night. Okay. And the entire board, one member spoke at least 10 minutes about how the Rutland Regional Planning Commission is so powerful. Everything comes down from them instead of from you guys. In planning and everything else, you have to look at that plan. It's extremely requirements throughout the entire plan. Shall do this, shall do that. So I'm just letting you know from what they feel in Castleton. And I'm hoping, to be honest with you, that when the final hearing comes up on this plan, that the people that represent the various towns will vote to not approve the new plan for the Rutland Regional and see what happens. That's what I'm hoping.
So, thank you for that. It's been my experience, and I've been on the board for a handful of years now. We have been working as the guiding force to shape the way that Fairhaven's future will look. And a part of that is expanding the tax base. And in order to expand the tax base, we have to be able to build in ways that we have never been able to build before. And we have to get around these laws that have been so restrictive. I look at this as an opportunity to build ourselves as a bedroom community for the likes of Rutland, for the likes of Killington, for the likes of Granville, or other larger communities. How we got here, at least from my perspective in Fairhaven, has been in partnership with Rutland Region Planning Commission, rather than feeling like it's been handed down from the Planning Commission. So that's my 2 cents on how we've operated here, and I just wanted to point that out for some of the board that hasn't been here kind of throughout the whole process.
And if I may, to be fair, we hold no authority over regulating municipality. We just provide technical assistance to make sure that you all have the tools to succeed. In terms of shall statements in our plan, there's maybe a handful, and they relate directly to Act 250. We are, like you all, a statutory party to Act 250 proceedings. That being said, in the past 10 years, we have not opposed a single Act 250 application in the region because we believe in pro-development and that we shouldn't be saying no to anybody unless a municipality like yourself would like us to advocate on your behalf to say no to something. A great example is a telecommunications tower was proposed in Timoth, about 50 feet from the Timoth Channel, which is Class 1 wetland. We went to bat for Timoth and we said, we oppose this tower. That's how we will operate and continue to do so. Our plan tries to capture those priorities that you all have laid out in this engagement over the last 2.5 years. Because we own no land, we have no authority, we are just an amalgamation of each of your communities who have representation on our board that governs our work.
Yeah, I don't want to argue with a straw man, and the select board member from Castleton in question isn't in the room. I appreciate you representing his opinion in your comments, but I just want to second what Chad said and just state that all my interactions as a member of the select board and the planning commission with RRPC have always been collaborative in the extreme, and I've never felt strong-armed into anything. So that's for whatever it's worth.
So, as Devin pointed out, it sounds like even the planning commission is against the tier 2 and tier 3 portion of the bill. And so to get back to that last question about if we were to reject the bill in general and write a letter of opposition to Act 181, we would lose our ability to join the 1B movement to bring housing back to the community. But so the other option would be like what Brandon has been doing for their last few meetings with a couple of different letters that they drafted where they recommended changes. And I think that we sit here with, when you listen to the good side of this and what it could do for our community in the village, it's like a warm fuzzy feeling like, wow, we could revitalize the town. What's happening up on Hamilton Hill on the end of Troubles End Lane is a neighborhood of people finding out that your son isn't going to be able to build a house on land that's been in the family for 247 years. And so I think you need to be careful with what you do, but I think you absolutely, that's even why I'm here tonight, you need to absolutely at least stand up and be heard and represent your rural landowners who are very, very upset about this. Because all those feelings you're having sitting here as people from the village that are trying to bolster our village are exactly the opposite out in the hills and the pastures and in the trees of Vermont. And so I'm one of the people that's been pretty fundamental in getting a movement started that has over 10,000 people listed in the movement right now. And like, we're going to be heard. And I would really like the support from our select board to at least be heard about what our sticking points are with this bill.
Yeah. I just want to address Devin's concern, I think primary concern, if I can go so far as to say. I don't imagine anyone at this table intends to propose today that we reject the plan to adopt the Tier 1B status and the new map wholesale at this point in time. I certainly don't, but I am also, to your point, Mr. Stannard, also strongly in favor of voicing our concerns and our disapproval for any rules in the new system that would make rural development of housing more difficult. I think that's the exact opposite of what anyone who generally supports what Act 181 wants. We want more housing and we want all kinds of housing. I feel we want all kinds of housing in all places, and to make rural development and specifically the type of familial homestead style development that you're describing more difficult, more expensive, or perhaps impossible, that just doesn't sit right with me. So signing a letter that said something to that effect, I would be completely in favor of.
Yeah, just one element of the regional plan that is a mandate that's new for us is the state proposed housing targets and asked regional planning commissions to municipalize those targets. For our region, we're looking at 6,000 new units by 2050. To Mike's point, we're proposing that 30% of those are outside of any of these tier 1 areas. And that's a that's a best guess, could be 40%, could be 50. So that means 2,000 to 3,000 units would have to exist in these rural areas. And if we're adding restrictions on that development, that will hinder our ability to meet our housing target. So that is a concern, absolutely. And I do want to give kudos to Mike, because I have been paying attention, and for the first time in maybe my time working in regional governance or regional planning and in the legislature, they actually are listening to towns for the first time. So by proposing a letter, most of the time you feel like it's getting sucked up into the black void under the golden dome. I think your letter will be heard. You know, I can't predict, I don't have a crystal ball in action, but it seems if folks want to retain their seats in the legislature, they're going to have to act this session.
So Devin, is it feasible for our board to go ahead and approve the 1B?
Mm-hmm.
And then write a letter taking a stand against the other two parts?
Yeah, absolutely. That's been a common approach from municipalities. Yeah.
I think Brandon would be our nearest example.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think a couple other communities are talking about it right now, but they're kind of early stages, but yeah.
Can I just add on one thing? Mike wrote a letter, and it was particular to Sam. I really think if you haven't read the letter, you really should read it, because it's the first thing that I've read that actually broke it down and made it much more easy to understand. So I sent a copy to Joe. Sam has copies. I really recommend to anybody listening to try to get a hold of that letter. He did a fantastic job. I just wanted to point that out.
We, motion. Yes, need a motion. Well, and aside from that too, I think it would be good to have a letter drafted for our next meeting that we can send off. So do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion, we accept the adoption of the 1B plan, and definitely write a letter to the state opposing the other two items.
I will second that motion. If we're happy to obey that.
Does the motion
Got it. Okay. I'm gonna get a letter, you guys this is just for you to sign, Chad.
Okay. We could do two separate motions.
No, we got it.
Okay.
Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you.
Just for Chad.
You guys weren't chicken on this one.
No, we've been working on this a long time.
Glad we didn't have to table it. That's,
I don't know if any.
Tires changed.
No, I have not checked. I've been so slammed tonight. What else?
Different kind of.
I mean, it's pretty clean, but if you
Oh,
want,
sure.
like, we just send it back.
Perfect. Yeah, will do. All right, gentlemen, thank you so much for the time and consideration, and good luck. You guys get quite an agenda tonight, so I'll skedaddle.
thank you. Moving forward, truck purchase discussion.
That's good.
No, we had one more in front of that.
Sorry, you looked at
Actually,
him.
that's, well, I said it with, that will be next. We're gonna go to handicap parking space in front of the grade school discussion.
So we had a Miss Foot sent me an email, and she was wondering if the board would entertain installing or designating a spot in front of the grade school for a handicap spot. In your package, you'll see an image right there with the bump out in the proposed space. Doing some research, the board can designate a handicap spot, but it has to be adjacent to that crosswalk per the ADA rules. The side there where the parking is just not wide enough in any other location. So yeah, I guess that's the long and the short of it. Is the board interested in installing a handicap spot there?
Quick question, I assume the school has been made aware of this proposal?
Yeah, I talked to the vice principal, who then talked to the principal, and they're both in favor of it. I talked to the police chief. He also has no problem with it in that particular location as well. So it doesn't seem like it's a controversial issue at all.
I'd be happy to make a motion. I'd like to make a motion to develop a handicap parking space? What would we say? Designate a handicap parking space in the area specified in this proposal in front of Fairhaven Grade School.
Do I have a second?
I'll second the question.
Discussion time. Yes.
Who's paying for this? We don't have money for even doing crosswalk painting. How are we even gonna fund it?
I mean, it's gonna be a sign, a little bit of blue paint.
We have some paint, correct?
It's white, but we'll figure it out.
Okay. Some blue eye in it.
Blue light, yeah, blue light will be fine.
Do we have a sign already, or would we have to purchase one?
Nate, do we have any handicap signs close?
I would have to look, but I would probably say yes, we do.
Probably do. So possibly the purchase of some paint, but possibly no additional expense outside of our existing assets.
Yeah, I can't imagine here. Okay, we have posts sitting outside in front here, so it's not like we're short on those.
Anything else?
Well, we're discussing in that same area, and no parking signs along there. Could that say no parking during school hours so that our parking events would be able to park there?
Which signs are we talking about?
There's no parking signs along the sidewalk by the school, in front of the grade school.
On the school side.
No parking on the school side. A lot of people don't park there because they don't think they can legally park there during events. Should and could we make a note that says during school hours on them signs, so people would feel free to park there at night?
So if the board wants that,
I have.
well, I'm thinking school hours, whatever school hours might be, but during drop off, does that count as school hours? You know what I'm saying? Like if somebody drops their kid off at, I'm gonna make up a number, 7 o'clock, is that school hours?
I would say.
Or school events,
Yeah.
would that count too?
I think we probably have to designate a time on the sign.
Let me,
Instead of actual.
let me develop some language for if the board is interested.
What I'm saying is there's a lot of parking spots there that people feel they can't park there because it says no parking.
Let me develop some language. We have to redo the traffic ordinance anyway to include this handicap space.
Okay.
So I'll develop some language and we'll see if you like it.
Thank you.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. I was waiting for you.
Any opposed? All right, ayes have it.
Letting you know
The handicap space designated. Purchase discussion.
So I'll cue it up, but Nate's our expert here. We have a Dodge pickup truck that's pretty much come to the end of its life. It's, I'm gonna say 8 years old at this point, maybe 9. And repairs are starting to become more of a burden than they should be. And it seems like throwing good money after bad at this point. Terry and Nate did pull some information on that he can share. Nate did manage to get quotes for trucks, and just in case the board approves this, we do have an application in with the state for a loan, which is at 2% interest rate right now, which is, I mean, as cheap as you can find a loan anywhere in the country. So, with that, I think Nate has more information.
Yeah, we got a quote for a Ram and a Ford 600, and we're trying to stay on schedule for a replacement plan for this. I had talked to a local dealer. He said he would sell our truck now to recoup some of our money. He's estimating around 25 to 30,000 to offset some of the cost on that. So, and that's kind of my take on it. And if you guys got any questions or.
Do you feel like these quotes are these prices reasonable, do you think?
Yeah,
the market?
These are all state pricing, so it's all the best you're gonna get, really.
Do you see one of these trucks as being better than the other?
My recommendation would be the Ford.
Is there a particular reason? Just out of curiosity.
It's one, it is cheaper, and two, it is heavier. And the lead time is sooner on that. We have had better luck with Ford instead of the Dodges we had one in the past. Or I should say Rams now, I guess.
Do we have any money in the equipment reserve fund?
Yep. You know, I can't find it.
Yes.
I can't find it. Yeah, we have 100 and...
Yeah, the only one I didn't print, but yeah, it's 100 and change.
I got it here someplace. We got too many papers to make that.
That's the only two quotes you got, Nate, was the Ford and the Dodge.
The Dodge is 132, 942, and the Ford is 125, 398.
That's the only two spots you got a quote from.
Yeah.
I don't believe there was a bid, BGS, I don't believe even offered a Chevy in that.
The Chevy though is,
Weight rating, correct?
it's the same, but the chassis are just so much bigger. Chevy and International are pretty much the same trucks. The cabs are higher and got bigger tires and all that. These trucks will be about, they're the same size we got now, they look like 1 tons. Chevys look like little top kits, if anybody remembers them, the old GMCs, that size. So the Dodge and Ford are more village friendly, in my opinion, than Chevys. The 5500 class, Chevys anyways.
Chad, the current reserve equipment fund budget is 103,134. That was as of a week ago, so.
Can you educate me, when you say village friendly, is that noise, is that impact on roads? What makes a vehicle more village friendly?
Just the size of it itself, with the wheelbase and stuff like that. The Chevys, they're not like a 9-foot body, they're 11-foot, they're just a all-around bigger, I don't have a picture of one, but they're just a bigger truck.
They wouldn't fit through the free parking area.
This potential loan at 2%, when would we have to start repaying that loan?
It'd be like a year from now.
So we'd have to consider this in our budget if we did this loan, right? So, that makes me feel a little better thinking about our current budget, not wanting to extend.
Because there is no reserve fund for equipment next year for truck, is there?
No, this is our reserve budget.
No, but nothing was added.
Nothing was added.
No.
I mean, what we could do is take the estimated, what, 20 or so that we would get from selling the current truck. We could take a portion of the equipment funds and we could drive that price down and borrow less. That is one option that we do have.
I'm not disagreeing. I was just thinking, so the loan is for 75% of cost, so you're gonna have to use a little bit of reserve fund anyway to make that first, or to buy that first chunk, the 25%. So yeah, that 30,000 will, or whatever it is, will be part of that.
Nothing says we couldn't do more on that, out of the reserve.
Absolutely.
Would it make more sense to go 75,000 out of our reserve and finance the rest of that? So we'd be financing less than half. And when the other truck is sold, that goes back in our reserve, put us back up to around 70,000 back in reserves. Just guessing.
I am a big fan of being able to pay cash. And this is the conversation Dennis and I have had for the last few weeks. Historically, a lot of this reserve fund is used, and almost never in the last few years, nothing has been put back. So if you start drawing down, which the reserve funds are used for, they should be used for this, but they should also be added to from time to time. So it gives me such pain to think that you were going to drain these funds and then not put money back, because this is where your cash flow is coming from. You have cash in your bank, and we're able to do projects like the water project I went through without having to borrow money at 6%.
And I don't disagree with you, but what I'm saying is, I'm thinking around 50% and then putting in some back. And if we could start putting back in our reserves at budget time, I think that would be the better way to go.
I agree with you, but come budget time, it's gotta happen, Mr. Green.
No, I understand.
We can't keep tapping our bank account.
I'm not the only guy speaking here. There's
No, I know.
3 others, but I'm just saying, that maybe, or finance the whole thing at 2%. I mean, 2%'s not a bad figure.
That's pretty good.
But it's more money that we're gonna spend.
I agree with you though.
Chad, if we finance, yeah, you said we're gonna do 100%, but what, 80%?
75%.
75%. Even if we funded it at that, if for some reason we got stuff straightened out in our reserve accounts, could we pay that off early?
Oh yeah, of course. We've paid a few loans off early.
And no penalty?
No. This is a loan through the state, so they don't.
I mean, that's another option also. The worst option is doing nothing. We gotta keep our equipment up.
Yep.
Somewhat in decent shape.
Nate, what's next on the list to replace there? Is it the 2017?
International.
That's a big boy.
So
That's gonna be a big one.
So I mean, that's
Me and Joe did talk about a game plan for that a little bit, but
yeah,
it won't be for a while.
I would almost think that it's 2% decent on what we need to do today, and we might need a bigger plan that uses some of those reserve funds for the larger truck later on.
Mm-hmm.
That's
another way of
absolutely.
looking at it. Yeah. Is this 2%, is this, what's the 10-year plan, or?
It's a 5-year plan.
A 5-year plan?
This is a state program that allows the towns to tap that short money for highway equipment.
Okay.
We've done 2 or 3 loans this way.
What is the desire of the board? Do I hear a motion to make a purchase?
I'll make a motion we make a purchase for that, for the Ford, I think it's probably the better deal. It's a heavier truck and it's actually the less money. So I make a motion we purchase that Ford. I would think maybe the best thing to do is, on the financing, to use the 2%, whatever the rest of the board members feel is the best way to approach that.
I'll second that motion.
Do we need a figure in that motion?
125,398.
Yeah, let's use that in the motion, and then when the loans and everything come through, we'll bring that to the
It's
board.
100, I make a motion, we buy the Ford at $125,398, and that's fully ready to go. That's my understanding.
You have turnkey, ready to plow.
Is that on the lot right now? Can you drive that away tomorrow?
No, it'd be 6 to 12 weeks of delivery time.
Good, thank you.
Not that quick.
No, I was gonna say, I'm gonna come with money fast.
12 to 16 week delivery, it says in this quote.
In the motion, do we have to use any language related to using the equipment reserve fund to match or to?
No, we'll handle the finances when the loan comes in, and then we'll be able to talk about.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right, so we've got a motion on the table. Do I hear a second? We've got a second. Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Use of reserve fund conversation.
Are you timing out?
Can we take a break for like 5 minutes?
Break for 5 minutes.
5, maybe 6.
5-minute recess?
5-minute recess?
6 might be better.
6, yeah.
So why don't we recess for 5 minutes and we'll come back to this. All right, we're going to come out of recess and back into business. There was a request to move up 2 minutes for public comment because we are getting late in the evening and we have some folks for public comment, but we also have some lengthy conversations ahead of us. So what would the board like to do?
I would like to make a motion to move 2 minutes for public comment up in the agenda immediately, to take place immediately.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. 2 minutes for public comment.
Hi, I'm Ann Ellis. I just wanted to talk to you just for a minute about, I guess, make a request about the cemetery, in particular the Cedar Grove Cemetery, but I guess all of them. I live across from the cemetery. I have for 32 years. I've watched the workers over there go from like 2 full-time people, then it went to somebody that was 1.5 time, then it went to a couple half-times, then it went to a couple that were there Monday through Thursday. I think maybe last year it went up. They got 1 more day because they were doing West Street also. And I know it's a lot of work. And I hate to see, Nate and his guys were there today. They do a great job. I hate to see them pulled from something else to have to go to the cemetery. I understand you don't have the money this year, so I'm respectfully requesting that maybe in the future you can plan for that in your budget for the following year. I know that when I bought the lot for my husband, my late husband and I, there's perpetual care included. Now my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, is how perpetual care works is that part of the money goes into a trust that earns interest some way or another, and that can be used, that is supposed to be used not for stones or anything, but just for mowing and fence work and the maintenance stuff in the cemetery. I assume that's happening, but I don't know if you even need to think about raising your fees for buying a plot and being able to put more in that, so more of that money could be used to maintain the cemetery instead of taking it from property taxes. I just wanted to put that out there because I am a little concerned that I know the guys aren't gonna, the regular guys can't start till July 1st, which is the new fiscal year. But quite honestly, I think these guys are gonna be stuck mowing more in May and June than when it gets hot in July and August when you don't need to mow as much. So I just wanted to put that out there. I also feel too, when people are over there, this is just me personally, I was robbed a number of years ago, and I just think the more people that are in the cemetery, and it was during the day, so I think the more people that are in the cemetery and can be around helps defer that. And I've also watched drug use going on over there for 32 years on and off also, and I know that that happens in the back of the cemetery still. So I just wanted to bring that up.
Okay.
To answer your question on the reserves from interest from the trust funds, we do get interest from the trust funds, and it is in the budget.
Okay.
It's actually pretty good, so.
You get from both cemeteries? West
From-
Street, yeah.
Is that
West
from both,
Street,
Joe? I don't know that.
Yeah.
It's
in the
from
town.
You're telling me that we're getting it from both. Is that what you're telling
It's
me?
in the town report.
It's in the town report.
You
right.
get one, there's a group for West Street and there's a group that people have donated money
Okay.
and they put it in the trust fund.
Trust fund.
Right. So, it's for both cemeteries.
Interest is from both West Street and
Right.
Cedar Road.
I worry, I watched what happened. I have family buried in the Evergreen Cemetery in Rutland, and I watched what happened there, and I would just hate to see that kind of thing happen here.
Any other public comment?
Yeah. Hi. Susan Travers, and I was Susan Poseybutt. At a very young age, my husband passed, Mark Poseybutt. We were 30 years old, so I've been visiting that cemetery for 35 years on a very regular basis. And I know 35 years ago that it was kept up very nicely, that we had at least 2 full-times. And it was a very safe environment, and it's not as safe as an environment as it was. It hasn't been kept up as well as it had been. It's not open nearly as early. Like, I also have family in the Pulteney Cemetery. My mom's buried in the Pulteney Cemetery, other members, grandparents, great-grandparents. Pulteney opens their cemetery before Easter every year so that families can get in there to maybe put something out. Fairhaven is typically not open before Easter. I'm fortunate that Mark is buried quite near the edge of the road, but for people who are elderly and trying to get across the cemetery, one, you have to park outside, try to squeeze through the little hole there. I would like to see that it's open before Easter, wherever Easter falls. I would like to see that cemetery open for Easter. And, you know, no exceptions, because I know right now they're over there working, but it's, as of Sunday when I was there, the gates were not unlocked yet. And that's always been an issue in my heart and soul, that people cannot get in to decorate the graves for their loved ones. So I'd like to see you guys consider opening it sooner. I get that you're in there working, and so the gates are still closed until you feel you finished your work. But like I said, Pulteney's been open now since the week before Easter. And they're working in that cemetery as well. I was there last weekend as well. And they're doing their maintenance and their work, but they're also having the gate unlocked so that people can go in. And we typically try to take care of our little areas. I do anyways, most of us do, try to keep them up. The other thing I'm kind of disappointed in, and when I chose that spot, which actually his brother and I chose the spot, it borders the back driveway in by their little utility shed garage. People dump their old wreaths and plant pots and wreath frames just down over the bank behind him, and it looks like a garbage pile down over there. So I'm disappointed to see that has been happening for years. And it would be nice to have some type of, I don't even, something that people can throw their stuff into. Pulteney has just some 55-gallon drums they've painted up, and people throw their old plant pots in it and such. But where I'm at, in this one.
No,
You're way
our
over.
lot's over by the pond, but
You're over by the
my
pond.
parents are very in the back too.
But this one just, it's a very deep kind of gorge down behind there, and people just throw all their garbage down there, and that's, so when I look at his grave, that's what I see. I see the old pumpkins, I see the old wreaths, and that's kind of, it's not a pleasant view. So when I see this on the agenda, I'm like, oh, this is my opportunity to come in and say, you know, for the past 35 years, I've visited on a real regular basis, and it doesn't seem to improve, it only seems to be going downhill. And I would really hate to see the lawns not being mowed until January, or July, and like now, we've had rain, we're gonna have nice green grass, and then we're gonna have Memorial Day, we're gonna have Father's Day, we're gonna have 4th of July probably, before those lawns are mowed in there.
No, I think they're mowing because they were
Are
there
they
today,
mowing?
but I just think it takes away from their regular jobs if
Right.
if there's not
Well,
the
there's
designated
only so
cemetery
many
guys.
of them, and I feel, yeah, they shouldn't be pulled from working on the roads and the important safety highway issues that we have in this community and other communities. I live in Castleton, but same everywhere. I mean, we're short-numbered, we're probably understaffed and overworked, and they feel underpaid some days. And, you know, how far can we split these guys? I think, yeah.
So that is gonna come up in a later discussion, or just letting you guys try to get that. It's gonna take a little while to get to that point, but if you wanna hang out, you can listen to that, and that's coming up. With funding, the cemetery.
Funding.
In the cemetery, the Memorial Day is the most important day, you know, so everything has to be done. And usually, it's like a big push to get it all done, and, but that it really is Memorial Day is the day that it needs to be done. And having people, you know, like, what do you have, 3 people working?
Oh, 4, including myself.
4? You can't, they cannot do the cemetery and the roads and everything else people want. And cemeteries are important to people. You know, they want them to taken care of. So,
We'll see where our discussion later on goes.
thank you.
Thank you.
I know you guys have an extensive agenda. Mike Stannard, I'm just here basically to let you know that I've sent all of the board members a letter of my personal opposition to the Tier 2 road rule and Tier 3 delineation on the current GIS mapping of Vermont for Act 250 and Act 181. I don't plan to talk very much. I have very little notes. My phone is dead, my computer's at work, and I'm totally fried from teaching teenagers to run equipment all day. But what I will tell you is that I've posted some things on the Fairhaven page that I think might be the most clarifying things that I could come up with, because it's a very convoluted law. There are things that can happen with the mapping after July 1st when it's implemented that we don't have any control of in our decision-making process now. The reason that 10,000 of us have risen up into a grassroots movement to try to repeal at least Tier 2 and Tier 3 is because the maps came out like in February, right? So like you've got 66% of Vermont's population trying to make a living and raise a family and hold onto their land and pay their taxes in Vermont. And then you look at this map, you know, after work on a Tuesday night, and they've decided what you can do with your land in a state that was founded by people literally giving their lives for property rights, right? So, as we already went over earlier, and you guys already attested to, there is some negative sentiment amongst the board for the Tier 2 road rule and Tier 3. So I'm just here to say that I encourage you to go through with drafting a letter, much like Brandon has done, making recommendations. And I think that it has to be having an effect on Amy Sheldon in the House Environmental Committee. It has to be having an effect on them, listening a little bit more to the people than all the lobbyists that influence this, such as the Sierra Club, a lot of out-of-state money and paid lobbyists that, you know, they eat lunch with every day. I think they're finally listening to us and realizing, like, oh, we should have talked to the 66% of Vermont that lives in the woods, right? So I guess I'll just leave you with that because you got a long night. But look at the things I've posted. I have directions on how to use the map, which is really, I teach GIS mapping, and I'm like, how do you figure this thing out? The legend is not accessible on a phone, so you really kind of need to use a bigger screen or a Chromebook or an iPad or something. There's a step-by-step process of what to do. The letter that I wrote has quite a lot of information that breaks down, you know, it might be a little bit biased, but it has some pretty good information on how we got to this place and what could be done about it and what the heck this law even is for people who don't know. So I guess my last thing is, if there is any need for help in drafting a letter or using, you know, a cut down version of what I've written in the past for other things with, you know, less personal sentiment and all that kind of thing, I can help to actually draft a letter that you could then approve or tell me get rid of this or add this, and I would just offer my help to do so. Because I think it's the most important thing in my lifetime that's come around in Vermont as far as preserving our way of life in rural Vermont. And I never would be here tonight about the Part 1B portion of the law. I would have just been like, oh, that makes sense. The Tier 2 and Tier 3 does not make any sense. And you'll find, you know, the hippie homesteaders up in the kingdom that raise goats and make hats and stuff, and they're against this. The loggers are against this. The sugar makers are against this. It's just anti everything that Vermont stands for from our founding and you know, pre-republic and pre-revolution. So I appreciate your support, and I would be glad to help if I can, or answer questions if you want to be here later.
If you could submit some language to Joe can help work on a draft, and then we'll take a look at that draft at the next meeting, and we'll go from there. I appreciate it.
Sounds great. Yeah, I'd like to help. I see how busy you are.
I think that would be wonderful.
Okay.
For your help.
Sounds good.
I'd like to think I could get my understanding of 181 up to where yours is in the next 2 weeks, but I'm not hopeful.
It's not easy. It's just become my personal, it's what I'm doing with my free time because we don't have much time. This has to be figured out before the session ends because it goes into effect on July 1st, right before Independence Day.
Yeah.
You know, 250 years later.
I don't like it. They want you to agree and you don't understand it. You know, it's like, what's
Not,
yeah.
not transparent.
May I just add, most of the people up in Montpelier who are drafting this stuff, for the 66% of those of us that live in the woods, are not wood dwellers.
No. Amy Sheldon is in a red zone of Tier 1B.
They're, you know, they don't have a clue what it's like to live even half a mile in the woods like I do.
Yeah, and I think they mean well. I really truly do. I think they're influenced by people who may mean well to a certain extent.
You know, where that is,
right?
You know, off the grid, not necessarily off
But
the
they don't
grid.
realize that we are out there trying to preserve our land. And the only way you can do that is with some compromise, right? And
I remember dealing with some people in Montpelier that were putting a monkey wrench in what we were trying to do. And the chief operating officer of that group was from Manhattan, if you please. Trying to tell people like us what to do.
so, thank you, and I'll get back to Ray.
Thank you. I read that.
Yeah.
I read your thing.
We'll get that letter drafted and send it out.
Cool, dude. I was up till 3:30 writing a 28-foot banner the other night. I can do that again tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Did I hear your comments that you're going to discuss later tonight about the cemeteries?
I think we're gonna discuss the use of reserve funds on some of our expenditures that we anticipate in operating.
When will that come up?
That is next.
It's next?
It is next.
Good.
All right.
I'll wait for it.
Any other public comment? All right.
Yeah, what Mike said.
Sounds good. Short and sweet. Moving forward, the use of reserve funds.
Can we cue it up?
Yes, please.
All right. Okay, so I don't think it's a secret, it's definitely not a state secret, that our budget has taken a bad impact this year for a couple of reasons. First, inflation and tariffs have destroyed us. Second, we had a bad winter with salt being an issue. And then third, the salary budgets were not exactly set at the right level where they should have been. All of this has led to a shortfall in our funding, which we've been, the accountant, myself, and Nate mostly, have been doing our best to do what the board tells us to do so often, is find money to keep things going. Which we've done pretty well so far, but as a result of that finding money, you hear what we've had tonight. We've had to cut services to the cemetery and then move highway staff to fill those gaps. This is what happens when things go the way they've gone. So, and I'll pass it off to Dennis because he's done a lot of work on this. He's found a good solution, even in my estimation, to kind of fill that funding shortfall.
Speak up.
So the one piece that I think's being missed is the park also. The park is like, I think one of the best things we have in Fairhaven. It's one of the better parks in Vermont. So with that being said also, that's, I'm not gonna say being neglected, but the guys, you know, have to take away from their other jobs to do the work. So we've been really trying to find funding for coming up with jobs to do work. I managed to come by the emergency fund policy today. I don't know if you guys have had time to review it, but I get to the right exact spot. It is for its purpose is for unanticipated expenditures and revenue shortfalls during the course of the fiscal year that may be caused by economic downturns, natural disasters, and other foreseen circumstances. Maintaining such funds will help sustain the stability of the town tax rate and reduce the need for short-term borrowing. So with this, I was talking to Joe, and as you look down through, and so you guys do know, I did give you we had $353,241.26 in that currently. Appropriations, it says we have to maintain between 5 and 10%, which we are well within that. We were at 12%. So if we could currently borrow $30,000 currently to get Joe back in shape with Nate, that would be able to bring the temps back at full force. And that was the piece where I mentioned earlier about the transfer station. Could we possibly get some time for an employee down there?
Joe, is our estimated shortfall 30,000 or less?
Right now, last number I got from Terry is we got 41,000 sitting for, so instead of just throwing a whole bunch of numbers, we had it budgeted out so we would land almost at zero for public works. So with the existing 41,000 and the 30,000 for salaries, yeah, that should get us, because Dennis and I, that should get us there, yes.
Yeah, close. If not, we did discuss, we could always come back to the table and we could talk about it. The biggest thing is we don't want to strip that account by any means, which I know we wouldn't be close. There, you know, and there would be some of that transfer station funding we could do some work down there with that funding that would come from that account. So that would come up at another date, so.
Yeah.
This would do us a couple things, it'd get, need some funds to actually be able to do some road work, maybe some sweeping, more sweeping, some culvert work, or, DI work. But they can work on that part of it, we just need to fund them. So I'm pretty much to the point I'd like to make a motion to use the emergency fund, out of the emergency fund that currently has $353,241.26. Use 30,000 of that to help fund the shortfall in our current budget for the municipal road crew.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that. I really would. We really gotta bring our
Do
cemetery.
I need that first number?
ASAP. I mean, we really got to.
Any other discussion?
Does that money just cover the salary part for DPW?
I think it would cover whatever 30,000 would get us.
Well,
until-
no, I know, I was just asking, that's all.
The budget is still frozen.
Yeah, that's what I was kinda getting at.
Mhm.
I do want to spend some time discussing the emergency fund policy, which I'm looking at, and just express that while I think I share Dennis's goal of addressing this budget shortfall, the way I read this emergency fund policy, it says that the money can be used during the course of the fiscal year to cover revenue shortfalls caused by economic downturns, natural disasters, and other unforeseen circumstances. It's other unforeseen circumstances that we're using to justify what we're doing with the money. But I think it is hard to argue that short-sighted budgeting qualifies as an unforeseen circumstance. So in the strictest interpretation of the emergency fund policy, I don't know that this necessarily qualifies. That doesn't mean I think it's a bad idea or that it doesn't need to be done, but I do question the legitimacy of the logic here in terms of using the emergency fund policy to justify it.
So I do agree with you that our budgeting was short-sighted, and we expressed that much during budgeting season.
Yeah. And I don't mean to place that responsibility on anybody else's shoulders. I was here for a year as well, so that's not me passing the buck either.
So with that though, the emergency fund policy talks about the use of this fund to alleviate unanticipated short-term budgetary issues such as revenue shortfalls and unforeseen expenses. And I look, the best example we have, or the easiest example we have in our current revenue shortfall is the transfer station, where we're about 76,000 under our budgeted revenue for transfer station. We used a trend, a 3-year trend to mark that budget for this year. So it's reasonable to think that even though we had a tight budget, we also are seeing revenue shortfalls, and we are also seeing increased expenses that went beyond what we were budgeting for.
Right. That's a good point.
I will say, I think we need to consider this in our budgeting process in the fall, because I really don't want to be in a spot where we're using these emergency funds every year because we want to keep it at a certain percentage and we don't want the voters to be upset. I think we have to educate the voters to understand the cost of running the town is increasing, and the revenues that we're getting from the fees that we're trying to fix are not helping and covering costs. So I will leave it there. I am supportive of using this fund because it does meet the spirit of kind of where we're at, and we do need to conduct business through June 30th. So I'll leave it there, but I do see a hand.
I just wanted to point out that the salt crisis that we had, that could be considered an emergency situation, as well as the several ice events that we had without the salt. So as far as I'm concerned, that could be emergency, that could be considered emergency situations. Not so much as a shortfall or a short-sightedness in the budget, but just a culmination of everything.
Yeah, perfect storm of factors.
Yes.
It really wasn't bad, just everything that could go wrong did this year.
Yeah. Yep.
From the federal level all the way down.
Did I see your hand at all?
No, I started the motion and seconded it.
We do have a second, right? You second?
Yeah, Rich seconded it.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
So what is, I'll talk to you.
Yeah, talk to me.
So, just so I clarified here, what's the 30,000 going to be used for?
Public works expenses.
And that includes the cemeteries? Part of the cemeteries?
Yes.
So next on our agenda is Lister's Certificate of No Appeals.
So the list, this is an annual thing that comes through about this time of year. They're saying there's no, and I'll read it directly. Not any appeals pending from the actions of the listers nor suits pending to recover taxes paid under protest. So they're saying none of that is happening. Select board signs and then we send it out to the town clerk. He's not being sued.
It's good news.
I could use a motion on that though.
Oh,
To approve it, yeah. No, it's fine, but yeah.
I'll make a motion that the select board sign the lister's certificate of no appeal.
See you later, Roy.
Do I hear a second?
A second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Did you get the supplemental for the,
I did.
We have next on our
Who
agenda,
seconded that?
Rich did.
Okay, thank you.
liquor licenses.
I'd like to make a motion. I'd like to make a motion to approve a second-class liquor license, a tobacco license, and a tobacco substitute endorsement for Midway Oil Corp.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
I'd also like.
Any opposed?
Share.
Motion carries.
I'd also like to make a motion to approve a first-class license restaurant and bar license for Scotch Hill Brewing LLC.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Any opposed? Oh, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
I'm completely lost here. Which one?
He just did these two. Both.
He just did these two, but who did the who seconded the second one?
I did.
Now it's gonna be these two. Can I keep this?
Next on the agenda, we have the use of grant match funds.
There's still, there's two more.
Oh, sorry, no.
All right.
On
the back of the,
That's,
All right, we have
that's
two more.
where I was the first time.
Apologies. I'd also like to make a motion to approve a second-class license, a tobacco license, and a tobacco substitute endorsement for Global Montello Group Corporation, also known as Jiffy Mart.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, I'm sorry, I was reading it.
Any opposed? Ayes have it.
I was giving Claire time to write.
And I'll make another motion to approve a second-class license, a tobacco license, and a tobacco substitute endorsement for SW Walk Corporation.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. All right, the use of grant match funds for the Northern Borders Grant.
Okay, so the Northern Borders Grant is the grant we're applying to get the engineering paid for down at the Prospect Street Housing Development. We're applying for $100,000 and I'm asking the board to provide a grant match of $25,000. There's currently $103,066 in your grant match reserve fund.
And the grant match is 25,000?
If it's approved, yes.
Do I have a motion? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion, we do 25,000 for grant match for Northern Borders.
I will second that motion.
Any discussion? Just to remind folks, it is the housing development that we are trying to get in motion and get developers into, so this is very important to expanding our tax base. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The next item is looking at authorizing Joe to be the authorized agent for that Northern Borders Grant on behalf of the town.
Correct. So this just gives me the ability to submit the grant, receive the grant, and sign off and get reimbursements for the funds as they come and spend the money as it comes and goes. This is a typical thing that all grants ask for. So if the board is so inclined, a motion to appoint me as the authorized representative for the Northern Borders Grant.
And do expenses from the grant still come for review to the select board, or are you authorized to do it?
Nope, they land right in the packet. The board gets the final say on all funding like that. This just authorizes me to be able to make those transactions.
Great. I'd like to make a motion to appoint Joe as the authorized official for the Northern Borders Grant.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The next item of business is the highway financial plan. Did I write that down accurately?
Annual financial plan for town highways, correct. This is another one of those annual things. We're just reporting out to the state what the board budgeted for its highway. And then it has information about class 1, how much class 1 road to class 2, class 3, and then the funding that we get for that. So we need a board approval for this.
I'll entertain a motion to approve
Annual financial plan.
I think I'm holding the only copy of this, right?
You are.
This wasn't in the packets. Has it changed, or would we prefer to do a motion and then do discussion? I'm sorry.
We can, if you want to do a motion, you can do a motion, then we can bring it to discussion.
I'll make a motion to approve the highway financial plan.
I'll second that.
Discussion.
Has it changed significantly from the prior year?
So this is reporting out to the state how much the town has budgeted.
Oh, okay.
So yes, that bottom number is what we budgeted, and that's broken down. Is it winter, summer work still?
Winter maintenance, non-winter
There you
maintenance,
go.
major construction projects, paving in various locations.
Yeah.
To the tune of $732,100.
But in essence, it is, as you said, just filling out the blanks with what we've already budgeted for.
Yeah, that's just telling the state how much we budgeted for our highway work.
We have the motion, we have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Next on our agenda, we have parking lot.
Yes.
Does anyone have any business they want to discuss in the parking lot? For the sake of time, I am wondering if someone does have a discussion item for the parking lot, perhaps we table it for the next.
If you do great, we're gonna table it.
It's a great idea.
The efficiency.
That's great.
Put it back in the parking lot.
Yes, that's it.
I don't disagree.
So hearing nothing, let's move on to board roundtable.
We've got a couple things. They're all quick and easy, I think. I want to thank Nate and crew for the project on West Street, finishing that, making it look finished. That's what I like to see. And Joe, just a heads up, I've said this before, but I'll say it in front of the camera. I like that. The sign across from the office, our marker sign, have we got the parts for that yet? That, the signs have been down for 2 years.
Oh, you know what, they moved them over behind town hall here. I'm gonna start working on that.
Okay.
We got the crosswalks working last week.
I see that.
So now this is my project coming up.
And thanks for the crosswalk sign.
Yep.
And then, this is a quick thing, I think it's the contractors that left the road closed sign at the corner of Marble and Adams Street down here.
Yeah, Mikowski's.
It's been sitting there since last summer.
I can remove it.
Now, just take it to the shop or put it down by there.
Yeah, I can drop it out. They're working on airport right now for Green Mountain. So.
It's kind of confusing when you're down over the hill, you see that sign there.
The sign.
And that's all I have.
Road closed sign.
Oh,
Paving company forgot to remove it.
Dennis, do you have anything for board roundtable?
That's all I have.
Yeah, I just wanna stay on, I've mentioned it to Joe again today, front of Durfee's, their cutout for where their tree was, really needs something done with it, even temporary, it's not good. Walking around their displays and then around that hole, if we could get that, something done with that, I'd really appreciate that.
My ears perked up when it was, I believe Susan during public comment mentioned the wreaths and pots and things that maybe are being pitched into the area behind the shed at the cemetery. And I haven't been there myself to know what the scene is, but if that's true to any extent, that does seem like something that we might want to consider addressing. So I just wanted to underline that, I guess. Perhaps on Green Up Day, it occurred to me, maybe there would be a way to get some resources from the high school to go over and do some collection there. That thought occurred to me, if that's something that could be arranged. I'd be happy to assist if I could.
It'd be great.
And anything else? That's well enough for now.
Just one thing building off of that is, there was mention that it feels unsafe in the cemetery. Wondering if maybe Chief can arrange for some random drive-throughs of the cemetery. Just increased presence there.
Can I just, you need to also keep in mind that there's been a lot of tick-borne diseases coming out of the cemetery.
Oh.
A lot of people walk their dogs down there. And in the last couple of years, we've had a lot of the dogs and the people coming back with Lyme disease or other tick-borne diseases. So one, if you're going to have some of the high school kids getting down there, make sure that they're covered and have the tick stuff, and it's a really good idea that you're having people mow down there, because that will help keeping the grass cut down nicely, will help with that. I'm sorry to take your time, but I just wanted to.
Good point. All right, review of the financial reports.
I'd like to approve the payroll warrant for $39,343.14. Sorry, make a motion rather to approve the payroll warrant.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm the only one left. Yeah, he did.
Guys have it?
I'd like to make another motion to approve the general warrant for $66,182.73.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that one also.
All those in favor?
Aye.
You guys have it.
And the checkbook currently stands at $499,601.12.
Thank you. There is no executive session today.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you.